Hello, today is May 22nd, 2024. I'm sitting today with Mr. Tony DuMosch at his home in Loveland, Colorado. My name is Brad Hoops. I'm the interviewer for the Northern Colorado Veterans History Project. Welcome, Tony, and thanks for sitting down today to tell your story.
Thank you.
Let's start out, if we could. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your date of birth, where you were born, a little bit about your family.
Well, I'm Indonesian ancestry, so all my family is from Indonesia, my parents and grandparents and their parents. But during the war, World War II, it was Indonesia. It was being taken over. It was Indochina, so it was taken over. So being a Dutch colony, my parents were sent to Holland, which is where I was born.
Oh, really?
So
Yeah.
I'm called dark Dutch because we have the darker skin. Born in '59 and came to the United States in 1961. Immigrated in '61 through Ellis Island over in New York. Came in that way, then took a train out here to California where the sponsorship was, and my grandparents set us down. My mom came as a single parent, which is her, my uncle, myself, and my opa and oma.
I mean, that's a story in itself right there. Did they tell you any of the stories of what
No,
they
they
went
didn't tell me
through?
much about the travels. I just remember them telling me they did take a ship and came through Ellis Island, and they got on a train and they came to California where they settled in Los Angeles. And
Were they actually caught up in the war there, or did they escape before
they
the
escaped
Japanese?
through, well, the Japanese were there, and I've heard of different war stories. Whether they're fictitious, I can't figure it out. But my mom would often tell me that she'd climb the trees and throw coconuts at the Japanese as a child because she was a kid at that time.
Yeah.
What's really I find quite interesting, though, my opa, which would be grandpa in Dutch, he was on one island. My oma was on another island. My oma was part of a very wealthy plantation where opa was a chief headhunter of a tribe. He was actually a headhunter tribe, a chief of a tribe that, yeah, they go out and get the heads. And when I was growing up in L.A., during a tough time in our family, they sent me to live with my opa and oma. And my uncle's bedroom had one of those shrunken heads in the room. And I'll never forget it. I thought it was the coolest thing, It was a real shrunken head.
Wow.
So, yeah, I got some headhunter blood in me. Watch out.
Yeah. We'll certainly get into your various travels through the years, but during your Navy career, did you ever get a chance to get back to the homeland or to your grandparents?
I didn't go back to Indonesia. I've always wanted to. It never came to pass. But I did in 70, 81. Around 81, I went to Holland, Amsterdam, where I was born.
Okay.
And I actually got to go into the house where I was born. It was an apartment complex. And wouldn't you know it, here I am coming back, and I was probably, 25, 26. And the midwife was still living there.
Really?
And because my grandparents, they could speak Dutch fluently, they all spoke Dutch, and the lady just gave me the biggest hug and remembers everything about it.
Oh, fascinating. So you guys, the family migrates to the L.A. area, and that's where you grew up then in the L.A. area?
Well, I didn't grow up in L.A. I grew up in California.
Okay.
My mom finally got married, I think it was in 62 or 63, where she had my sister, and then in 64 my brothers came around, twin brothers. So she got married to a Pennsylvanian American, all white guy, and he became my stepfather, and he was always looking for the better job. He never served in the military. It's not that he didn't support it, he was in that in-between stage. So he was always looking for the better job. So I lived in Los Angeles, I lived in Van Nuys, I lived in Carpinteria, Sonora, Mount Shasta, Oakland, San Lorenzo.
Almost like a military brat without being a military.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Wow. We'll talk a little bit about your childhood, some fond memories, some bad memories if you want. What was like, particularly moving around like that a lot?
Well, I think that's what kind of made me who I am. I'm an extrovert because if you're moving around that much, you got to learn to survive. And the only way you're going to survive is knowing people.
Right.
If you're an introvert and you are in one town, and you kind of get stuck in that hole. So by moving around, it allowed me to be more socially active in the community and socially active in schools or any sports. So I was very active in elementary school and sports, all the way up through junior high. I was very active. High school, I limited it down just a few things I'd done, but I've always been active in sports. I've always been active in the community. I was in Boy Scouts doing volunteer work, just that kind of stuff. Living with my would be considered a half sister and half brothers. I lived with those throughout my years until I joined the Navy, and that became sometimes challenging during those days. My dad's always looking for a better job, so you can imagine that we did not have a wealthy kind of lifestyle, not even a mediocre. There were many times I do remember learning to enjoy rice, milk, and sugar for dinner, and that was our dinner. And if you didn't eat your dinner, you got it for breakfast. My grandparents were very, very, very strict on that. If you did not eat your dinner, that was going to be your breakfast. But they lived in an environment of a third world country like that, where everything was of value. You don't waste it.
Right.
Just don't waste it. My sister, Cindy, we didn't really bond a whole lot growing up. I think we bonded a little bit more in our later years, because she's a girl, boy, so we kind of had separations. My brothers, they were twins, so they pretty much stuck together, and we fought a lot. We fought a lot. They were the hoodlums, and they'll admit it. I was the good one. They were the hoodlums. They'd break a window, I'd go after them and get mad at them. What are you breaking that window for? And of course, they'd come back at me. And we've had our duking outs. I usually lose because there's two of them.
Yeah, right. So you go through the school system, graduate, and then join the Navy thereafter? Or?
I actually joined through the DEP program, delayed entry program. And I joined the Navy out of Modesto, California. Went to Sonora High School, where 7 of us joined the Navy altogether. If I go off track here a little bit, I apologize, but here's a funny story. The guy that got me involved, he backed out.
Oh.
One of the other guys that joined, that was Kerry Ross, so if you're out there, you owe me or I owe you, I don't know which. But there's another gentleman, and this is really weird, Tim Waite. Tim and I joined, and it was in June. We left, and he told me what he wanted to do. He wanted to fly, and I said, well, that's what I want to do too. But of course, you're young, and you don't know if you qualify. Long story, bringing it up to 1980, I want to say 1980, because I was in Holylock, Scotland from 78 to 81. About 1980, I met Tim in Scotland.
Huh.
We're going from Sonora, California, far west you can, and here I met a classmate in Scotland, in a bar. And I recognized him, it's him, and he looked away, and so we got to talking, what are you doing? He goes, I'm on that sub. I go, I'm on that sub tender. So here his boat comes up along our tender, and we have a few drinks and talk about high school days, and never heard from him again.
Wow.
Now guess what? I go home on leave. I went to another command. I go home on leave in Sonora, and I run into him again. This time, hey, what are you doing? He said, hey, what are you doing? And I go, no, I asked you first. He goes, well, I'm AWOL. I said, what are you, stupid? So I talked to him. We had a long talk, and hopefully he heard my words, and he did turn himself in. I just couldn't believe it. Somebody from my hometown had me twice in my career like that.
Right. Well, backing up then. So that was the motivation to join the Navy, was those buddies, or
No, the motivation really came down to, I lived in a small town, Sonora. Actually, I lived in Columbia State Park, and in that town, you cannot drive a car through this main street. No cars, no motorized vehicles allowed there except state vehicles, because they keep it preserved to the late 1800s Western theme. A lot of movies are made there. So you could drive a car around it, but you're not supposed to drive through it. You go to Sonora. Sonora is the bigger town. Now, mind you, the bigger town back in 1978 meant it was a T intersection with one red light flashing. That was the big town. If you want to go to the city, you go to Modesto, where they made the movie American Graffiti in 78.
Yeah.
So we as kids would travel 45 miles down to Modesto to go cruising. But I left Sonora because I felt that if your family didn't own a business and you didn't like to do drugs, you weren't going to be successful, because drug dealers and businesses were the way to go.
Wow. Oh boy.
And I wanted to join the Navy to see the world, and I'm not a school kid.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
a more hands-on individual. So I first went to the Army recruiting station. In Modesto, they have them all there. And, I went to the Air Force because I said I don't want to fly. Air Force rejected me right off the top when I'm not a citizen. So the Army recruiter heard me coming out.
Back when you said you weren't a citizen, you hadn't had your citizenship yet?
No.
Really?
Yeah, I was in the Navy for 7 years as a Dutch citizen.
Really? Man.
I had to have 2 green cards, my military ID and my alien registration card.
And then through your service, were you then eventually granted your?
I wasn't granted, well, depends on how you say granted. I wanted to get my secret clearance for my next level.
Okay.
They won't give it to you if you're not a citizen.
Yeah.
So I went to San Francisco and paid the dues. The guy says, "What are you here for?" And I told him, and he says, "Come on up here, we'll take care of you." I didn't have to do the test or nothing. I just gave him the $50. He gave me a certificate, and now my naturalization papers in a safe deposit box.
Yeah, I'll be darned. Wow.
So.
So where did you go? Take your boot camp?
San Diego.
San Diego.
Company 090.
You know, and how was that transition going from civilian life into military life?
Oh boy, was that will shake you and rattle you a bit, because no longer do you have mom or dad there like they tell you, "I'm not your mother, I'm not your father, I'm not your babysitter, but damn, you're going to do what I tell you." And now, mind you, I joined in '78, and I understand basic training's changed quite a bit. Back then, they wouldn't purposely spit on you, but you could feel. And now I understand they can't even touch you. Back then, they could touch you. There's a lot of changes that's happened, so I never really wanted to stand out in basic. I tried to keep as low profile as possible, but of course you get picked out now and then. And one time, the worst memory I have of basic training was I was in basic training. You got the racks on the floor, and well, there's 2 of them, and then you have your lockers between the racks, or at the foot of the rack, or something like that. And if you left it unlocked, the company commander, which was Chief Little and Chief Weiskopf, they'd call you into the office and tell you to bring every drawer out to them, and they'd go out their window and dump it. And you had to go down the stairs, go get, and no, you can't go down there and pile it together. You go down, if your glass broke, and you weren't supposed to have glass, you had to pick each shroud up until everything was brought up. Well, the reason I bring that up is they called me in the office. "Recruit DuMosch, your locker's unlocked. I want you to bring it to him." "No, sir, it's not." "Recruit DuMosch, don't argue with me, go get it." I said, "No, it's not unlocked." Fortunately, Chief Weiskopf was there, and he called the other guy whose locker was unlocked next to mine. And he came out of the locker and goes, "Where's your locker at?" He told him, he goes, "DuMosch, get out of here." And all I heard was, crash! And I knew what happened with that poor guy. I felt for him, but I was sweat. That was the scariest moment I had in basic, was that moment. So, fortunately, I was not the victim that time.
Okay, so then through boot camp, where's your first assignment, or did you go off to additional schooling, or?
Well, basic training, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I really didn't know for sure where I wanted to go. So I took what they called the apprenticeship program back then, and I left as a E1. And interesting at that time that they give you your first duty station. My first duty station happened to be on the USS Holland AS-32 in Holyloch, Scotland. Okay, so now I'm going from California all the way to Scotland. How am I going to get there? And I'm 18.
Yeah.
They tell me, goes, "Well, there's 3 ways you can go. The government will do everything for you. We can buy a ticket for you, or you can take the money and get there. Give me the money."
Really? Yeah.
So I took the money, and it was one of the best decisions I ever made, because I took the Amtrak train from Sacramento, California, to Washington, D.C., down to Norfolk, Virginia.
Oh, man.
And I'll tell you what, that if nobody's ever done that, you got to take the Amtrak cross country like that. It was superb. I met some of the nicest people in there. I wore a uniform. They treated me with highest respect and regards. Being single, there were some cute ladies that I met, and I just recently threw away all those pictures. But,
Yeah.
I went to the National Museum Aviation National Museum when I was there. I took time.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed. They gave me so much time to get there as travel time. So I chose the cheapest, yet the mediocre route to get there. And once I got to Norfolk, they put me on a military airlift command, and flew me over to London.
Huh. Wow.
So that was very, very memorable.
Yeah. What a smart decision. Wow. So now you're back overseas again for the first time.
This is my first time. Yes,
yeah.
sir.
And I mean, as an 18-year-old, what was that like?
Well, you got the culture shock going from mama and daddy's house, being at liberty to wear your hair any way you wanted to. And at that time, I had a fro that stuck out like crazy. And to have it all shaved off, they had a blast with that.
Yeah.
And now the next culture shock, I'm leaving good old USA and going to Scotland, a place I've never been. That was a bit of a culture shock.
Yeah.
You know, I'm by myself. I don't know anybody. I'm on planes. I got hundreds of people around me.
Small town boy that really hadn't gotten out and
Again,
about
that's
much.
where that extrovertness in me throughout my life, I've always been outgoing. And I think that really, really helped me a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I made my way on board my first ship, made my first salute to come aboard. And to get to the ship, you had to go on a pier. Then you had to get on what they call a Liberty boat. It was like a Mike 8, I think they call them military. It's a square boat, like a landing craft. And take you out across the lock to the pier side that floats. And then you go up the brow of the ship, ladder gangway, and get up there and you salute and come aboard. And ended up in my first division, which was supply division. They assigned me to be a wardroom waiter. So I got to work in the wardroom as my first command, and that's where I got my Navy start. Didn't have to do dishes, didn't have to cook. I just had to clean tables, bus them, and make sure the wardroom was neat and ready to go.
Wow. Did we have a base up in Scotland, or what was that?
Holylock submarine base.
Oh,
It
really?
was a Holylock Polaris submarine base. So we can load and unload Polaris submarines and torpedoes and supply submarines. The submarine tender was quite large. It was basically a huge factory. It can make any part you want. It had a foundry on board. We have machinists on board. So if you had a part that broke, they take it, they measure it, they put it in a sand cast. Molders would come over and pour the molten metal in it. They make the part, give it to the machinist, fine tune it down, and give it to the machinist, which what I eventually became, or whatever person needed that part.
Wow.
Put it back on the sub, let them get underway. So we had I often tell people we can make a car, no problem. We just can't make the rubber for the tires.
Man. So did that tender just stay there in port, or did you guys ever go out to?
The tender normally stays stationary.
Okay.
And in this case, it was anchored by 4 huge cement blocks on chains. But required by the Navy and regulations and upkeep, the ship does have to get underway periodically, like every 2 or 3 years. So we did get underway and went to Norway. And
how was
our
that?
port call.
I mean, being probably the first time on a ship, did you get your sea legs, or how was?
I kind of got lucky. Now the Holland had 10 engines on it, 6.4. I think it was 6.4, 6 aft, 4 forward, 1 away, or the other, all diesel engines, and they ran this gigantic motor. So there's one shaft on the end of a motor. So if you think of your drill, and you're putting your drill bit in, that's your shaft. Pull the trigger, get that motor going. Those were those generators pulling that trigger, making that energy. The motor for that shaft was probably oh my gosh, it maybe seemed big at the time, but I could lay on top of it. I'm 5'8" at the time. I could lay on top of it and barely have an arc on it. And that was that was my duty station underway. Was being back there on the motor.
Oh, really?
I'd literally lay on that motor because it was nice and warm. And the humming kind of gave you that little vibrating. Just sleep. So I really never got seasick.
So you moved down from upstairs into the engine room then? I mean, that's where.
So I got done with my mess cranking day,
Yeah.
what they call mess cranking days, and I was assigned to the conveyor shop, which was cranes and elevators. They have elevators in there. I was assigned to that, And then later I was assigned to the high pack, which is high pressure air compressors and low pressure air compressors down the engine room. So I had a couple duties there, and I got around, and fork truck repairs, and just, I was always moving around. I always had, if I had the opportunity to move and learn something new, I was gone. Because I wanted my hands to work, my eyes to work. I didn't want to be in a class.
Yeah.
So I spent my...
So it was all on the job training then, pretty much. Then no
That's exactly
schooling.
what it was, right?
Wow.
I didn't get my schooling until, let's see, I was there 78, 79, 1980. I got my third class crow on board ship, didn't even get an A school. And what they call it, your basic training for what your rating is, which is machinist mate. So they sent me to machinist mate A school in Great Lakes in later 80s, in late 80s, I should say. While I was in Great Lakes, so I'm kind of, homeland side, I can go home for leave too. And then I went back and finished my tour. I actually extended my tour. I was supposed to be only there for 18 months, I believe it was, 16 months, but I stayed for 3 years. I had an extension on there to stick around for another year.
Now, at this point, were you thinking, I'll just put in my enlistment and get out of the Navy, or was there any thought of eventually turning it into a career?
No, I knew I was going to stay in for a little bit longer. That wasn't enough for me. I wanted to see more. I wanted to do more. The Navy rules and regulations really didn't bother me. I kind of think it helped me personally, keep me on the straight and narrow. Not to say I didn't do anything bad, which I'll keep to myself, but my next duty station after the Holland took me to the USS Roanoke in Alameda, California. The USS Roanoke was an ammunition oiler ship. So being in Scotland, I got to see Germany, Holland, Belgium, England, Edinburgh tattoo. I wore the uniform when I went to Holland in the place called Ayr Scotland, AYRE. Took a boat across Ayr to Rotterdam, Holland, wearing uniform. I'm going to tell you what, when I was in Ayr Scotland, it was like I was the first American in uniform that showed up since World War II. There was so much praise. Everybody just coming around me. I was in shock and awe and just total respect. I was eating it up for those who did the time.
Yeah.
50 years ago at that time, back in the 40 years ago back in the time. And I was just in awe that they were so happy to see an American sailor in uniform. So
wow.
I got to do that once, and when I got to Holland, I did it too. And then I got back to my command, and they let me know we're not supposed to be wearing uniforms outside base because there's people after us. And you didn't tell me that before I left, and now I'm proud of this uniform. I'm a proud American serviceman. I'm going to wear it and show them. So wasn't allowed to do that anymore, but it didn't mean I didn't stop. But then I went to duty station in Alameda. And now I've seen all those countries in Europe.
Well, now when you make a switch like that, do they give you the option? Well, we've got this tour, or they say, Tony, you're going.
So what you're talking about is how do you get your next duty station?
Yeah.
They have today I don't know if they still do it, but in my day they had what they call a dream sheet. And on that dream sheet there's 3 lines. And within those 3 lines they have location, type ship, and something else. And in those 3 lines, if you pick the top one, that was your high priority. Whichever one you put 1, 2, and 3. So that's how I put in my request when I got to Scotland. And when people in San Diego base training heard I was going there was a few people upset. They said they were trying for that. How did I do it? And I go, I just asked for it. I made it number 1 on everything. I didn't care about this, so I just made that, and it merged up what they're looking for. And same with the USS Roanoke. I didn't ask for a specific ship. I just said what I want to do. I want to go on the West Coast, be a ship that travels, and I want to do this. And I'm single, so.
Yeah.
So on the Roanoke, I did my first Westpac cruise and got my shell back.
Oh, okay. And explain to those that may watch us that aren't familiar with the shellback ceremony,
Sure.
what that's all about.
Now, the shellback has changed over the years, like everything else, with our kinder, gentler society. And shellback is an initiation crossing the equator, and in this case, we're headed to Diego Garcia, so we got to cross the equator. And I was a polywog, and a polywog is pretty much a person who's not been there, and shellbacks come in to initiate you in crossing the equator. It's a long seagoing tradition in the Navy. It goes back to tall ship days. And in this case, I was a antagonistic, troublemaking, outspoken pollywog. We pulled in the Philippines before we went on this trip across the equator. I purposely picked up a mask. It had a long black beak, it had orange horns, had big teeth, and I called myself the King Wog. And I challenged King Neptune the day before. And so here I have this big spiel going, and I wrote it all out, and I'm on stage at Still Beach Picnic, which is on the fan tail of a ship. The guys are having a picnic, and I'm making a hoopla about the polylogs will have their night tonight before the shellbacks did. I paid. The next day it was shellback, and part of that initiation was you put your pants on inside out and backwards, and you have to be on all fours everywhere you go, up the ladder, across the non-skid deck, wherever you're going, you have to be that way. And the shellbacks would have a fire hose called a shillelagh, and they'd smack you on the ass and as you're going by, and you'd feel it. As you go around to these different stages, there's things like the coffin, where you had to go into, which was nothing more than a coffin box, huge box, with day old food in salt water. And they'd close the lid on you and hope you hold your chunks in for yourself, otherwise you'd be chunking somebody else. So you get out of that, and after they feel you've got enough of that, you go to the next station. Maybe you might meet King Neptune and his royal belly with the oyster. Well, we didn't have oysters. I think they used grapes. But that wasn't the worst part. Is when they put that Crisco on him. The biggest, fattest man you got, and he's showing his face. And it's like, ugh. And there's that. And because I was such a troublemaker, I was the only one that they did this to. But they put me in a cargo net, because our ship isn't water, ammunition, fueling. So they have cargo nets. And they hoisted me up on the cargo net, trapped in there. They left me up there, and everybody came around with a fire hose and played me like a piñata. So I just kept yelling at them. There's a picture of me screaming and yelling like that. But it was all fun and games. Nobody got hurt. We all made fun of each other. So long as you didn't make it overly personal about a family member, everybody was fine with it. And it's unfortunate they can't do that today, because people, well, I broke my fingernail, or my hand can't have that callus. And it's really unfortunate, but maybe it's for the better. That's all I can hope.
Through your career, were you on the other end of the
No,
ceremony?
I never got to be a shellback initiator.
No? Oh, okay.
I only served 3 years on the Roanoke.
So this one was heading, where were you heading on this?
This Westpac took me to Hawaii, David Garcia, Hong Kong, when Hong Kong was Americans could pull in there, and I think it was in '99 they finally turned that back over to the Chinese. I've been to Sasebo, Japan, Thailand. Thailand was a beautiful country. When we cut out, I'll bring you something back up here. It'll show you something pretty impressive. But I really got a good Westpac out of it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we were supposed to go to Australia, but the USS Kansas City blew its boiler out heading to Australia. And when you blow a boiler on a ship, you just blew the hole. The bottom hull went down an inch.
Oh, wow.
It's not good. So we had to take up their commitment, and it took away our Australian port call. So that was unfortunate. But I was not on the Roanoke when it was grounded. I was not part of that.
Uh-oh.
The Roanoke came back from a tour, and they ended up getting grounded on the shoals inside Alameda.
Oh.
And just so happened to be, at that time that happened, I was part of base police in Alameda, because I got transferred from the Roanoke to NAS Alameda Police. And I was like, I'm glad I'm not on the ship now. And I was coming home, and family are waiting at the end of the pier for them to come in. And, nope, you ain't coming in tonight. That's pretty sad.
Wow.
But I worked in the engine room of the Roanoke. Had a couple of 600-pound steam boilers down there. It was twin screw. A very, 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 very clean ship. That was immaculate. We had a lot of pride in those engine room spaces.
Well, what were conditions like down there? As far I envision an engine room being hot and noisy and.
The Roanoke was really good. I mean, the ambient temperature down there was probably around 85, 90. It wasn't that bad. If you go in the boiler room, it gets quite a bit warmer. But regardless if you're in the boiler room or in the engine room, all the rooms were clean. And it was very roomy. The engines were the way they were put in there. You could walk around. They're turbines, gas turbines, were the engines. It was very roomy. Throw this in there. Being a Cold War veteran, I never served in combat, and I never pretend to serve in combat. But I do know it takes 65 of us to support that one in combat.
Bingo. Yeah.
And so I'm proud to say I helped support them the best of my ability. But we had an incident on the Roanoke, so it's probably the closest I got to combat was an engine room fire.
Oh, jeez.
And what happens? We had a young man who's bucketing condensate, which is liquid from a steam form, gets condensed, becomes water. Well, he had it in a bucket, he kept trapping, so he dumped the water bucket over the side of the deck inside the ship. Well, there's 2 decks in that engine room. There's what they call lower level and upper level. So when he was pouring water down the lower level, he didn't look where he was pouring it. He was pouring it on the bus bars straight off of a generator. We're talking these brass metal plates, a good 3/4 inch thick, 4 inch wide, 5 inch wide plates. There's nothing but current going through these plates. It's not wire. And, well, that's okay until it fills up. When that box fills up with water, you short circuit that. Coming right off of that, I don't know what KW that was, but let me tell you, it blew that generator so bad. I was on lower level watch, and I actually saw that fireball hit the deck, come off the generator, hit the deck, hit the bottom side of the upper level, and come down and dissipate right next to my slop, my steam lube oil pump.
Man.
And I screamed, fire, fire, fire. And as soon as I hit that, you heard the GQ alarm go, and every hatch in that engine just dropped. It was like, bam. Well, you practice for it.
Yeah, yeah.
But here's what a lot of people don't understand is we train for this.
Yeah.
But if you tell that to somebody who's never been there, they're freaking, oh my God, what'd you do? Well, we did what we were trained to do. You put the fire out. You manage everything. You secure the power, and you go to it. We can't leave that space until the fire party gets down. Now, the fire party coming down, they're putting on their OBEs, oxygen breathing apparatus. They're getting their applicators. They're getting their fire hoses. They're getting the team ready to come on down. We were so good, it was out before they got down. Our division kicked ass.
Wow.
But we worked as a team. Everybody knew what to do. We were very well trained. We never trained for this, but we trained for other simulations.
Yeah.
And so, that was probably
That had to be terrifying, I would think.
When you think back about it, it scares the shit out of you.
At the time, you're probably adrenaline, you're just moving.
Right,
and
your
training
adrenaline's
and
going,
kicking
and
it.
you're focused on what needs to take place.
Oh, man.
So that's probably the scariest moment I had in the Navy.
Oh, no doubt. Any injuries or?
I don't recall anybody getting injured. It was because when he poured the water, it didn't happen then. It was when the ship took a roll and all that water in the bus, because the bus bars are in a big box, a metal plate, and the water just kind of went up as the ship took a roll, and that's what kicked it.
Man, oh man.
It's just the blessing of God that it didn't become a bigger fire than what it was.
Wow.
We took care of it quite quickly. But the weld marks are on the decks where it hit that fireball.
And how would you, I mean, it was an electrical fire, so how would you put something like that out?
You secure the power. Like if the lamp was on fire, make sure it's unplugged before you try to put it out with water.
Oh, okay.
It might trip a breaker, but you still want to make sure it's unplugged.
Okay.
Now, in this case, it's off of a generator. There is no breaker. Right? It's like going out to your poles. Telephone poles out there with the big transformers. They're on fire. They got to shut the power down going to that. And that power is coming from the coal plant or whatever electrical power plant's providing it. And then they'd have to trip the breakers.
Did that disable the ship, or were you still able
We had 4 generators, so we were plenty good. We needed 2 to run the ship.
Wow.
You could run with 1, but you're limiting your power thing. But 2, you're fine with on the Roanoke.
cow. And did you generally enjoy the work down?
I loved all the jobs I've had.
Yeah, did you? Yeah.
Going down the bilges, if I had to clean down there, it didn't bother me. I didn't let things bother me like that. I thought that was small potatoes.
Yeah.
And it kind of, people say, oh, I never work in the bilge or nothing. Well, it's not so bad, you know. I don't work as hard, but, you know, if I was working on replacing a steam lube oil pump, I'd probably work a little more faster and harder on it than I did down the bilge, if you catch my drift.
Yeah.
They don't see you down there.
Yeah. What kind of shifts would you work?
Well, that all
12 on, 12 off?
depends on the staffing now. We're usually 4 on, 8 off through the week, 4-hour on shift. When you're at sea, it's not like you get liberty. You can't go home.
Right.
So you did the 4 hours of your watch, and then you're off for 8 and come back. But there was a time on the Roanoke where half our crew got seasick. So then you had to pull what they call port and starboard, which is 6 on, 6 off, or 12 on, 12 off, depending on what the ship wanted to do. Those were not fun.
Oh, boy, no kidding.
No, port and starboard sucked. We did that for a little while. On the Roanoke, I started in the engine room, and then they moved me over to the distillant plant. We had 3 distillant plants to maintain fresh water and feed water for the boilers, fresh water for the crew. A distillant plant, what it does is it takes salt water, goes through these various chambers that's under a vacuum. The higher the vacuum, the lower the temperature. You could flash off, what they call flashing or burning off the salt minerals in there. By the time it got to the 3rd stage, it was water. All we had to do is add chemicals, and you have drinking water. So, and that's how we kept the ship with fresh water. Well, one time our distillant plant didn't work so good, and we were losing water. So instead of the whole ship going port and starboard on this case, it was just the crew fixing that distillant plant. This will be fixed. And I have to say, if anybody watches this video or hears me say it, I'll sit here and tell you again. You officers in school, the equipment did not read the book. Listen to your enlisted people. Because we had an officer on there who was so adamant to get everything down to the numbers of the book. It doesn't work that way. And that probably is what took us so long. He was finally relieved to stop bothering us, and he was spoken to by the command master chief. So we got our work done, and the distillant plant came up without his numbers and book knowledge. So.
Well, now, growing up, before you got in the Navy, were you mechanically inclined? Is it something you were kind of...
I've always been mechanically inclined.
Okay.
I've worked on engines,
okay.
Small engines, car engines. I tinkered around. I'm not as good as some other people out there, but I just enjoyed it.
Yeah. Well, what was like, you were talking about 6 on, 6 off, or what would you, talk a little bit about life on the ship and what living conditions were like, what you guys would do when you were off duty, to entertain yourselves?
That's an interesting question. I'll tell you why. Because my first ship, I was on the 4th bunk high.
Oh, right.
So that was the tender. When you're going up there, there's supposed to be step on. And you got to be careful when you're stepping down, because you're 3 bunks down, they're getting out of their bunks too. And they call them coffin racks or coffin bunks. On the second ship, the USS Roanoke, there was only 3 bunks. And I either got the bottom or the second one normally. And then on the Roanoke, we had 3 bunks also in there. So the bunk, it was tight quarters, but you get used to it. The Navy does give you what you need. And if, like they say, if we didn't issue it to you, you don't need it. And so people get creative on how to store extra items. You have your mechanical spaces you might find in your own spot, or a storage room. So living quarters is pretty good. The Roanoke probably had the best baker. The Miller, the 3rd ship I was on, I can't deny it had the best food.
Oh, really?
But it was a smaller ship. It was a much smaller ship, and it was a reserve ship. So it had a smaller crew for that reason. So the cooks can cook up to your likings rather than to this huge big ships. They have to keep it mild for everybody.
Oh, right. Okay.
And we got steak and lobster every month.
Oh. Wow. And then, so what when you were off duty, what would you do to entertain yourself or keep busy or pass time?
Oh, wow.
Or just,
When I was in Scotland, I liked to travel. In fact, a lot of the guys, they'd ask me, where did I go? If I took my leave, I said, I'm taking 10 days or 12 days leave. Where are you going? Where are you going, Tony? Where are you going this time? I'm going to Holland. Where are you going this time? I'm going to Edinburgh Tattoo. Where are you going this time? I'm going to London Piccadilly Circus. And yeah, I drank. Yeah, I had fun. In fact, I blew 10,000 in a bar in one night from an re-enlistment check. I was stupid. It must have been 10,000 because I don't see that where else that money went.
oh no.
The second time I re-enlisted, I was smarter. I bought a house. But yeah, I had my moments in the nightclubs, but I also made sure to visit the countries that I was in. I wanted to make sure I got to feel their culture. I wanted to eat their food.
Yeah.
I wanted to get away from the drunken sailor mentality that people have of American sailors and going down some street where human entertainment lies. So I got away from that a lot, and
Oh, very cool.
so I got to enjoy that.
Yeah, yeah. But what say when you guys were out to sea, and you were, what would you do in your downtime?
Downtime at sea would be spades, playing the card spades, just board games, maybe like backgammon. Some of the guys would have some illegal games going on, like dice and poker and whatnot. I wasn't much of a gambler, and so I didn't get involved with those. I was what they call a comshaw artist, I guess you could say. People had something, they wanted money, and did a little bit of exchanging going on.
Oh, okay.
I also had a slush fund.
Yeah.
So, because I wasn't that big of a drunken sailor, and other guys were, and they wanted some money to go out and go drinking, and they already blew their check. Hey, Tony, can I borrow some money? Yeah, sure. And I've had officers and enlisted both come to me, and
I'll be done. Yeah.
I just, back then, you could wait at the end of the pay line for the money, because now they get a direct deposit.
Ah, okay.
But back then, you could be at the pay line waiting for your buddy to get his check. He'd cash it out, and he'd see you go, shh, how much I owe you? You owe me 80. All right, here. And all he borrowed maybe was 50, depending on what my rate was.
Yeah, right.
But everybody, those that did it well. And what was really nice is we all talked, because the ships I was on was small enough where you could talk to other people that had that slush fund. And they knew if Jimmy over there stood me up and didn't pay me, he wasn't getting money from anybody else.
Oh, right, yeah.
So
sure.
you didn't do that.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to say anybody got physically harmed from me, but I'll say I'd let the word out real quick. So, and we had a tight niche that way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you didn't have direct deposit back there, so you basically got your money and you just put it under your mattress or something. Or how would? I mean, out to sea, you had no place to really spend it. I mean, so you would.
But they can give you a check, or you can go dispersing and go ahead and cash out. A lot of guys would want to cash out so they can go into port.
Oh, okay.
With that money.
Okay.
So.
Oh, interesting. Wow.
Yeah, it was a little bit different back then.
Yeah, yeah.
I can't imagine what it was like in Korea, Vietnam, World War II.
Right.
Well, I guess Vietnam, they had military paper money.
Okay.
Right? Because they didn't want the American dollar in the Vietnam hands.
Right.
So they had a whole different pay purpose there.
But your pay was in U.S. dollars and it wasn't in military script?
Nope.
Okay.
It was U.S. grade A dollar.
Okay.
Yeah. Or a check.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I just put the check away because they didn't need it.
Nice. Yeah, yeah. So continue on with your story with your next assignment.
The next assignment after the USS Roanoke, I went on to NAS Alameda, base police. And
once again, by choice, or?
This is by choice. Yeah. Well, I put on my dream sheet what I wanted. It was an easy transition because I was already in Alameda.
Yeah.
So that was my first shore duty command. I did 2 ships. Now I'm on my first shore duty command. And that means I won't go to sea. I wore a policeman's uniform. I had a Smith & Wesson 38, cuffs, radios. I had the power of arrest. Went to school while I was on shore duty there to Central Texas College for associate's degree in juvenile juvenile
Wow.
crime. So
Huh.
I got that going and got on the SWAT team. That was fun. So I was at NASLP. I got onto a SWAT team there and learned how to rappel Australian way, which is your head down and going down the wall. It's pretty cool. Did some really neat stuff. Got myself in a little bit of trouble. I don't want to go into detail on that.
Fair enough.
And lost a chevron.
Oh, no.
So that cost me dearly because I passed my first class test, but I didn't get my first class yet. So I went from second to third. So I had to start a long career all over, and that almost took me out. And it was, but again, you know, life is a blessing. The decisions we make makes us who we are today.
Yeah.
You learn from them, or
Right.
you keep trying. In this case, thinking back, it was a blessing. It made me a better person.
Wow.
I guess I like to think that way.
Yeah.
So once I got done with that tour at NAS Alameda, I went on to I went to the reserves.
Now, normally tours are what, 2 year, 2 years?
3
Or
years,
just-
three.
Oh,
Some
okay.
get 3, some get 4.
Oh, okay.
Depending on where you're going.
Okay.
So I went in '85. I went into the SEMA Reserve, Ships Intermittent Maintenance Afloat Group, where we repair parts for ships coming in. It was a reserve, so I only had to go in every 2 weeks or 1 week in a month, something like that. 2 weeks out of the year, you go out at sea. Well, halfway through that, I got in a serious motorcycle accident. Broke my wrist going into duty, and I ended up in the hospital. I had about 6 months left on this, and finally got out. Got okay from the Navy to come back in the service, and I said, I want to go back active. Well, you can't. What do you mean I can't? I want to re-enlist. We can re-enlist you in what they call the TAR program at that time, which is Temporary Active Reserve. So I said, okay, I'll do that. So I went into the TAR program, re-enlisted, went through some training, again, some formal training, and then they sent me to the USS Miller, which was a TAR ship. It's a reserve ship. So I got on board that in 1990. I was on that 1990, is that right? No, I apologize. 1987 to 1990. I was on the USS Miller FF-1091. Best ship ever.
Oh, really?
Best ship, hands down.
Yeah. Why is that?
Roanoke had a clean ship. Miller had not just a clean ship. They had the best, tightest crew you can imagine. I don't care if you're a radioman, a signalman, if you're a boatsman, if you're a black sheep down in the pit. I've never seen a tighter crew than that ship. For if one person needed help, everybody helped them.
Do you attribute that to the leadership, to the skipper, or how?
Absolutely. There's a gentleman by the name of Master Chief Corvo. God rest his soul. He recently passed about 5 years ago. A lot of us kept touching him. But he was a command master chief, and it was a lot to do with his leadership as senior enlisted personnel, that we were all brothers. And we even had known gay men on board our ship. Now, everybody has their opinions about that stuff. I'll serve next to that guy anytime. He did not ever once push his beliefs or his morals on me of what kind of lifestyle he wanted.
Yeah.
And I respected him so highly for that. He was not what, if it offends anybody, I'm sorry. Kill me, will you? He was not a flamer going around.
Yeah.
He did his job. He was good. I'll never forget that. And I respect that guy so much.
Right.
Because that's okay to live what you want to live. But respect others.
Right.
And don't try to influence them.
Right.
Especially when they're not being asked to. But we had a damn good ship. It was a smaller crew, which probably helped. But that was my best ship of all. Best crew. In fact, I just mailed some of my Navy memorabilia because I won't be around much longer.
Yeah.
So I sent it to a shipmate. He called me up crying. He couldn't believe that I remembered him. And I thought of him so preciously as such a tight shipmate. He was much younger than me. And in fact, a lot of the guys thought I was their age. Well, keep in mind, I got in trouble. So when you're a third class,
okay, gotcha.
and you're coming back,
Yeah.
and they're looking at you, and you act younger, and you look young,
Yeah.
they're thinking you're their age. I was 10, 15 years older than them. And they're like, damn, so he remembers this. And he just recently asked me for if I had an extra Dixie cup, because he's missing one. So I sent him that along with some other USS Miller memorabilias that I have that I know he will treasure.
Yeah.
And his name was Eddie Powell. There's a gentleman by the name of Doug Stolorski. He is another great guy. And I told him I need to send my wife. I was a ship's photographer on the Miller too.
Oh, man.
And so I sent all my Miller photographs to him, and they're going to put it in a PowerPoint presentation or some kind of video and donate to the USS Miller archives.
Wow.
So he's putting all that together. We have a reunion. I went to the Dory Miller unveiling. Dory Miller was, for those who don't know,
Oh, right, yeah.
Dory Miller was an African-American steward aboard the USS Oklahoma. And during the Pearl Harbor attack, he actually went up and saved his captain from any further injury, and he took a hold of the anti-aircraft guns, and he is accredited with shooting down one, if not 2 zeros during that. A black man, no training, and here he is at that time, who was not allowed to be on it, was defending his shipmates and his country. And for that, he got the Navy Cross, but we're hoping someday he'll get the Medal of Honor.
Wow.
And now they're building a carrier, a Ford-class carrier. It's supposed to be keel is laid in 2026.
And
Naming it for Doris Miller.
Oh,
Yeah.
wonderful.
I was on the USS Miller, which was named after Dory Miller, but the carrier will be called CVN, I think it's CVN 69, I could be wrong, 73. It'll be the USS Dory Miller, full name.
Oh, wow.
And he'll be the first enlisted, the first African American to have a carrier named after him.
Wow.
And that's pretty huge when most of them are named after
Yeah,
presidents.
right. Yeah.
So
Well, you'd started saying that your next ship was, the Roanoke was clean, Miller was tight crew, but the best ship you said was your next, the ship you were on next. What your favorite ship? I thought you.
the Miller.
Oh, the Miller was.
Yeah.
Oh,
US
okay.
Miller.
Oh,
US
it was.
Miller is the best ship.
Oh,
hands
okay.
down. Hands down. Yeah. It had a clean. We had a lot of pride. The captain allowed us to do our own graffiti on the ship. So aft steering was my space to take care of. I color coded every line down there, painted them the proper colors, painted the deck, painted the hatch going to aft steering with a big screw propeller on top of the hatch. So you open up this hatch, you knew you're going to aft steering. And then after I had that for a while, they sent me to Auxiliary 1, which is where the generators were. I was the LPO there, leading petty officer. And I painted a big light bulb, and in the light bulb, coming through was a fist. And through the fist was some lightning bolts coming out. And I had that all painted up. Aux 1, power and lighting is what I had on there. So we had, you go into the space and you see this big old mural up there. Everybody had their own little nick about it. So
Yeah.
unfortunately, all 3 ships are decommed or sunk. So
That's gotta be
around.
that's gotta be tough because you guys, it's such love for your shifts to see that happen.
But we got each other.
Yeah.
So it makes up a little bit.
Yeah. And then from the Miller.
From the Miller, I went to NRD Denver to be a recruiter in Golden, Colorado.
Oh, really? Man.
So, funny story on that one there. I got my orders, and I was in Pensacola, Florida, going to school to be a recruiter. And they came to me with my orders, and they said, "Hey, DuMosch, here's your orders. Looks like you're going to Portland, Maine." I was in shock. I just came from Rhode Island.
Oh,
I was trying to get to Portland, Oregon. Fortunately, so fortunate, the guides are looking out for me. The Master Chief of the command where I came from, the USS Miller, his brother is the Master Chief of the command at Pensacola. So I pulled that card out,
Yeah.
Went to go see the Master Chief, and I started out by saying I like to see the Master Chief Corbeau, and they go, "What's your business?" I went to person over from Master Chief Michael Corbeau. So I used my other Master Chief. So I got in to go see him. So how's my brother doing? Oh, he's doing great. His babies are doing good. So excuse me. So we talked a little bit, and I told him the situation. He goes, "Let me see what I can do for you." I said, "Thank you very much." He came back to me, and he said, "Tony, I'm sorry. I can't get you Portland, Maine. Help me. What other place you want to go?" I said, "Master Chief, I'm going to make it easy on you. I'm going to make it real easy. You get me west of the Mississippi, but not California. That's all I need. And I prefer the mountains." He goes, "Okay, we'll see what we get you." He came back and says, "I got you Golden, Colorado." I go, "Golden, Colorado? What's there?" He goes, "You don't know?" I go, "No, Coors." So he's all about Coors. I go, "Okay." So I took my orders. I went to California to go see my family, is where my family was at. Did some leave. Picked up my little golden Nissan truck, little sport truck. Filled it. Said goodbye to my family. Said I'm headed to Colorado. And I was in just awe of the mountains here, driving through the canyons in Highway 6. Just blown away. And finally found out where my duty station is, but my actual duty station is in Denver. The recruiting station is in Golden. They didn't tell me there was a difference.
Huh.
So I reported in the recruiting station the next day, got me a hotel room, and reported in to my rank, which is Jeff. I forget his last name now, but he's a small, tiny guy, Jeff. And ported in, and he got me down to Denver. We got me all checked in, ready to go, and got myself an apartment in Arvada. And I told the landlord when I moved in, I said, "I'm only going to be here for a short time because I plan to buy a house." So we made a short-term lease on it 6 months. And I went and bought a house, and that was my first house I ever bought. It was in Arvada at 6130 Carr Street. And I was still a bachelor, not married. And I lived a bachelor life in Golden. And I wore the shit out of my uniform. Because it works.
Yeah.
Them blues work. So
Oh, I bet that was a great assignment for you. I mean,
I-
ideal for your personality.
it was great.
Yeah.
I had a little bit of difficulty at the beginning. My first 3 months there, I rolled what they call a donut. When you roll a donut, that means you got 0 people in. You roll a donut the second month, you're on the toe on the line now. You're on that yellow line. You roll a donut the third month, you're going back to C, no questions asked. Well, 60 days went by, or 2 months, and I was called into the chief recruiting office. And he said, "What's going on? Why are you rolling these donuts?" I said, "I don't like the telephone. You want me to be on a telephone all day long? I'd rather be out there. I can get you more people than I can out there than be on a telephone. It's not personal." He goes, "Well, Tony DuMosch, I'll tell you what. I'll let you do what you want to do because it's your career. But you're going to see if you don't bring anybody in." "Aye, aye, sir." He let me off that phone. He called the rinks and let him do what he wants to do. He thinks he knows what he's doing. Now, what I didn't tell you, when I went to recruiting school, they held me back a week because they accused me of cheating because you got to pass a script. And they thought my partner was lipping the script to me. And I tried, "No, he's not. I've got this."
Wow.
So I got laid back a week.
Oh.
Now, that's already one widget against me. He knows that. My chief recruiter knew this. Now I've got 2 donuts on me. He's like, "I'm done with you." He doesn't want to waste his time with me. So this month, the third month, I come in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 applicants in 1 month, and they all shipped. He called me in the office. "What kind of cheating shit are you doing?"
Oh, man.
"I'm not cheating. What are you telling these guys to get them in the Navy?" "Why don't you come with me?" He didn't like that answer. So I tried to tell him as nice as I could. So he sent his rink out. Let me go, "How much did the rink go out?" Which is the recruiter in charge of that station. Rink reported back, he ain't doing nothing wrong. In fact, he disqualifies more than he gets.
Huh.
So he's getting good candidates. After this took place, 7, you get this big award, Golden Eagle Award. And they're just in awe. How did he do it? And I try to emphasize over and over and over. You gotta meet the people. You gotta create a dialogue. You gotta let them know what you feel. Let them see your passion and your belief in that product. If you don't believe in the Navy, you're not going to get them. And I can't sell over a phone. I can make an appointment.
Yeah.
I can't sell.
Yeah.
So I did this for about a year and a half. I didn't even do my full stint. And they called me back. What's up? We need you down here. Where? We need you here at NRD. We want you to be a we want you to be a classifier. We're going to send you to school to be a classifier. Classifier position is one who brings the applicant in and assigns them their jobs on the computer.
Oh.
They've never had a machinist mate do PN work, which is personnel and yeoman work. So they took a chance. Put me in the seat, went to school, came back, sat down, started doing it. Not a single one of my applicants walked away unhappy. And the chief that got me this position, I still keep in touch with today. His name is Daryl Williams. He just recently retired out of a MAPS after 40 years. Now, the day before I left, a new machinist mate comes on board. He rolled not one, not two. He was getting ready to roll his third donut. I already had 6 in on my last month because I was emptying my stash. A good recruiter will be like a good engineer. You never tell the boss what you really got. A good salesman will do it too. So I still had one in my pocket, and this is a good story to tell. So I take this brand new machinist mate, second class recruiter with me. I go, we're going to get you one today. How do you know? I go, I know. So we went to the house of the applicant, knocked on the door, surprise attack. Father and dad are there. Yeah, I'm here to speak to your dad. Well, what about? About you wanting to join the Navy, right? Well, yeah. So dad comes around and goes, what's this about the damn Navy? He was a grumpy guy. I said, well, sir, my name's Tony DuMosch. I'm a United States Navy representative here to talk to you about the Navy. Notice I said representative? I didn't say I was a recruiter. Never used it. I'm an official Navy representative. With that being said, it took off the curse of a recruiter.
Yeah, right.
So he goes, what are you going to be? What do you got to tell me? Oh, here to get your son enlisted in the U.S. Navy, but I need your signature. Are you willing to sign? You tell me why I should sign. I gave him my spill. When he got all done, he looked at me. I looked at him. He looked at me. Then I looked at him and I said, pretty frickin' slick, isn't it, sir, what we got? He said, where do I sign? And my buddy in second class says, oh my God, I can't believe you just did that to him. Why? I believe in it that strong. We can give him a job. We give him food. We give him clothing. We give him everything, medical, dental. You go to McDonald's, you might get that, but you're going to work on a grill.
Yeah.
You know, and that's how I'd sell it.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was fun to show off my talent in front of a brand new guy.
Yeah, right.
And be kind of cocky about it at the same time. So I went to MEPS after that. That was good. Yeah, so we were in Golden, and I became a MEPS classifier. Where there I was there for probably about a year and a half. And then after MEPS in Denver, I have to say I was awarded, I know there's no place but first place, but I was awarded runner-up as National Classifier of the Year.
Nationwide?
Nationwide.
Or system-wide?
Nationwide.
Wow.
If not worldwide, but I know it's nationwide because I got cruises around the world. I was beat out by a guy in San Diego who is a YN, but here I am, a machinist mate, a monkey mate, whatever you want to call me, and I'm doing their work, and I came up runner-up, beating all the others out. So
yeah,
it was really cool. I got me a Navy Achievement Award out of that, and some recognition from my local command. So that was good.
Yeah, yeah.
After that MEPS, then I went to ATG Mid-Pac, Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. ATG stands for Afloat Training Group, Middle Pacific, so in the station in Hawaii. And I went to a school before going there for hydraulics, where I got another NEC to work on hydraulic equipment. And my duty station was on Ford Island. For those of you who don't know Ford Island's a tiny island where all the battleships were surrounding inside Pearl Harbor. I was assigned there to the dockside underway simulator, where ships can come pull up on the pier and practice unrepping to another ship, which means they run the high lines across one ship to another ship, and that's how they transfer mail, bodies, whatever, ammo. And so we were a simulator, we were stationary, we were land-based. The ship was here, and they just practice so they don't hurt nobody, or it's less chance of being hurt.
Right.
Bill Clinton took office at the time I got there, and he did a reduction of the Navy to include schools and other training sites, and ours was one of the first ones to get hit. So they shut down our dockside simulator, and they looked at me and go, "So what are we going to do with you now?" I go, "I don't know. What do you want to do? Can you swim?" I said, "Yeah, I can swim. You can be a swimming instructor." I've been in Hawaii maybe 6 months, and now I was going to be a hydraulics engineer, and now you can have me swim. So my last 4 years in the Navy, 5 years in the Navy, I spent in Hawaii. Most of it, good portion of it, was water survival instructor for the Navy. I went to SAR school, which is Sea Air Rescue. I did not graduate. I had an injury while I was there. And although I did go through the training, I came back to my command and they go, "We don't care if you're qualified or not. You know what to do. You know what needs to be done, right?" Goes, "Yeah, you ain't out there saving their lives out in the ocean, so you can continue being a SAR instructor." It's like, okay. So I was helping the SAR, which is parachute disentanglement and things of that nature out at sea. One thing grew into another. Then I worked for MWR, Military Welfare and Recreation Department in Hawaii. I worked with the American Red Cross in Hawaii. Volunteered with them a lot. I was a huge volunteer there. And I was in the pool. I wore what they call BDU shorts every day and a t-shirt. I wore no other uniform. That was it. Being on Fort Island, you have SEAL Team 1 and 3, and me being a machinist mate, every now and then they'd break equipment. And they'd call on us to come fix it because they were too busy doing their own training. So we would go there and fix their equipment. And then, so I got to see some neat stuff. But other than that, it was like, whatever. You're just another guy to me. You know, I respect what you do, but I'm not going to sit here and drool over you, and I'm not going to think you're the god. And what's really nice is they respect you for that. A lot of the guys there, they could appreciate that. Of course, I was a senior enlisted now, and I was at E6. And one of my favorite memories there was a young lady. She was a black gal. I was in the cafeteria on Fort Island, and I heard this lady scream top of the "Petty Officer DuMosch!" And I was like, "What the heck? Petty Officer DuMosch, you promised?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" So I got up and I looked over there, going, "What's going on?" She goes, "You are my classifier. You promised me this." And I go, whoa. Oh. Yeah, I got to meet one of the applicants I put in.
Wow.
So I asked her, I said, "What was it? I'm sorry, I've worked with so many people. What were you asking for?" "I wanted to be a corpsman." I go, "Okay. So have you met with your career counselor?" "I don't know who it is." I go, "Well, if you remember, I talked to you about this. In order to get what you want, you got to go through your career counselor. You can't just do it on your own. You got to get help. So let's go find out who your career counselor is." So I took her to the side. Long story short, came back. Before I left, she became a dental tech. She's happy. Some of these youngins, they just need that little guidance. And so long as you hold true to your word, I feel that they will respect you. And it was quite rewarding for me to help her out that way.
Yeah.
She was mad, and everybody in the cafeteria heard it. But she can go back and say, "Yeah, he helped me out, though."
Oh, very cool.
So that was very cool. Another good story was a young lady who had hydrophobia. And in a lot of the military ranks, they want you to learn how to swim in order to make rank. Now, you don't have to be an expert swimmer. You just have to swim 500 yards, make 500 yards, any way you possibly can.
Yeah.
When you have hydrophobia, you don't even get in the water. They take showers. They don't do baths.
Wow.
So she was really worried, and a lot of the instructors like, "Oh, she's never going to make it. She'll make it." I go, "She'll make it. She'll make it." So we put a side bet on. I went and talked to her. I go, "You really want to learn this, don't you?" "Yeah." "Because I need to know if you really want to learn it, I'll help you, and I'll use my own time to help you. But you got to show me you want to learn it." 6 months later. It took 6 months. First we had to get rid of the hydrophobia, get fear of the water. And I'd have her we'd sit on the edge of the pool, just put our toes in there, That's where we started. See, no problem. And then we just very slowly work her in and show her how safe it really is. But 6 months later, she did her 500 yards.
Wow.
And she did 3 of the strokes. She did the crawl, the breast, and side stroke. She wasn't good on the butterfly, but neither am I. And that's not a water survival technique. You'll never use it.
Yeah.
You'll use a butterfly before you use it. Or you'll use a breaststroke to push the flames away before you use a butterfly to try to slap the flames on you. So everybody was happy. She was happy, and the other guys had to suck it up and give me the money, Bubba. I told you she could do it. You just got to be patient. You got to be extremely patient with those kind of students.
Yeah, right.
While I was in Hawaii during that time, I was worked with Red Cross on the beaches, park beaches, whatnot, as a lifeguard. I was a lifeguard. I was a lifeguard instructor, and I was a lifeguard instructor trainer. I got all those WSI courses under me. So that was fun. I love teaching. I love teaching CPR and first aid and lifeguards. I really enjoyed it because the kids that come for those summer jobs, they were so young, so youthful, so vibrant, and anxious to learn it to say, I'm a lifeguard.
Yeah.
And so that was a lot of fun, and I'd have fun with them. I'd play tricks on them when they're doing CPR. Okay, show me how you're going to do CPR on this one. You just pulled them out of the water. Now what are you going to do? They just look at me. No, you're testing. And then okay, you got a pulse. They check. It's got a pulse? It's got a pulse. So you don't have to do the compressions. Just check the right way and make it clear. And sometimes I'd switch it up. Say, no pulse. Chest didn't rise. Chest didn't, because they're not breathing right. Chest didn't rise. Chest didn't rise. I'm trying to go, maybe you should tilt the head back. Oh, yeah, that's right. So you just kind of have fun with them. And they knew we're all having fun. It's good times.
Wow.
And when I had to leave, because I was retiring, they gave me quite a receptionist party. That was fun. While I was in Hawaii, I talked about some of my volunteer time in the Navy. Actually, when I was in Hawaii, they brought out the Navy Outstanding Volunteer Service Medal. It's an official medal that was put out for the armed forces, and it came out in the 90s, late 90s. I got one of the first ones that was awarded to me while I was in Pearl for all the years of dedication of community work. Remember, I was on Alameda as base police. I volunteered as Big Brother out there. So I was a part of the American Big Brothers program. And I don't recommend that for active duty people at all unless you know you're not going anywhere.
Right.
Because when I had to get transferred, that kid looked at me and goes, fine, leave me, just like my dad did.
Oh.
And I said, I'll never do this again.
Wow.
We had good times. His mom had a good time knowing that I'm trying to mentor him, but that hurt. When I was in Scotland, I volunteered with a lot of activities in the community for the ship's command. When I was in the Roanoke, didn't give me much opportunity to volunteer because we were so much at sea, so I didn't do a lot with the Roanoke. But when I got on the Holland, not the Holland, when I got on Pearl Harbor at ATG, I did a lot. Coached a few years a girls softball team, teenagers, 13 to 16. And I have no kids. I was not married in the Navy. So I live vicariously through other people's kids and try to be involved with the community and still reward myself watching these kids grow and kind of work their issues out, just be there. And our team was called Chaos. And it was chaotic, let me tell you. In fact, one of the girls at that time, she was 14, maybe 15. I still keep in touch with her today.
Wow.
She lives in Idaho, and now she has kids, and we keep in touch. It's really cool.
Well, I mean, the years I've known you, you were in the thick of volunteerism, and through your Navy years, you did a lot of. What's the root of that? Where did that come from, do you think?
Giving back.
Yeah.
Just, I have the time and I can do it, and I'm going to give back. It's just who I am.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what I'm here to do.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know. It just comes naturally. I'm an extrovert. I like to get out. So when I get out, rather than go drinking, I volunteer and do something else. Something more productive.
Yeah, right.
More meaningful. And it's not really about meaningful to me. I get accused of that sometimes. And maybe it's because they're jealous that I get that attention, or maybe it's because they can't and they wish they could. I don't know where it comes from. I'm not going to pretend to know where it comes from. But I can sit here and say, without a doubt, I don't do it for the attention. I get a lot of it, but I don't ask for it. There's a lot I've pushed other people in front of me, and I still get it. But I'll share that praise with anybody because I didn't do it alone. There isn't a single volunteer job I did single-handedly. There had to be somebody else involved somewhere.
Yeah.
The girls' softball team, did I coach alone? No, I would not do it without a mom there. So I asked for a coaching mom because working with girls, I did not want to be accused of anything. And I made that very clear when they asked me to coach because I was an assistant coach first, 1 year. And they didn't care for the actual coach too much. It had to be my shipmate buddy I've known forever. And it was hurtful to him, but he was pretty rough. And I just had to follow his lead because it's wrong to overstep. So the following year they said, we don't want him, we want you. It's all right, but I want a team mom here. Every practice, every game, at my side. Because I wasn't going to fall for no false allegations.
Sure.
And there was some, what are you going to call it, teenage crushes going on. A couple of the girls would give me stuff. I said, thank you, and I just put it aside. Now get out there. But those kids that don't have a dad near them, they're hungry for that. They're hungry for that direction as much as I was hungry for that direction with the Navy. And if you have the opportunity, give it with kindness and with the love a parent would give, not out of being mean. It doesn't work.
Wow.
So
you finished out your career then in Hawaii?
Yeah, I retired in the year 2000 out of Hawaii and moved to Colorado.
Did you hold on to your house in Golden, or when you moved out?
Yes, absolutely. I held on to the house in Arvada that I bought while I was recruiting in Golden. I've rented it out to a couple folks, some Navy and some weren't. And I'd frequent, use a business trip, come back to Colorado, check on the house, and I'd go back. And for the most part, being a landlord overseas wasn't too difficult. I had phone numbers to call contractors in for work if need be. But when I did come back in 2000, a young lady by the name of Sherry Anderson, I met her on a computer, believe it or not. And this was before AOL, people. This was before any kind of dating thing was out there. This was back in 97, 98 when we were working with DOS. And all you got was a black screen and the blue pixels. And if you wanted to see a picture, they had to send it through snail mail. So, and there's no voice, it's all just letters. And you go in these chat rooms called Microsoft Internet Relay Chat, MERC. And we'd go through that, and we communicate quite a bit. And Sherry, who's now my wife, knows I was an ear to listen. And I was there to help if I could. But I was really interested in somebody else in the chat room. And she knows all this now. So that's who I wanted to see. But that never came to fruition. And instead, when I did come back one time, just before I retired, I met Sherry in 99. I think it was the first time I met her. I came out, we introduced, got a face-to-face, and I took her on a hot date. We went down to Denver and got the Chariot ride, and we stayed in one of the fancy hotels down there and did everything I could to make her feel like a queen. And we became really good friends. And when I retired in 2000, she says, Tony, if you need a place to stay, I know my apartment's not big. She had a 2-bedroom apartment. But you can stay here until your house is vacant. And I thought that was very kind of her. And so I said, okay, I'll take you up on that. I never made it back to Arvada. I've been here in Loveland since. I married my best friend, is what it ended up being.
Wow.
Her, in 1 year, in 2001, remember I retired in 2000. In 2001, she lost her mom. In 2001, I lost my mom. 2001, she lost her ex-husband. 2001, I lost my ex-girlfriend. It was very, very tough. We went through so many deaths in that year. And she knows of my ex-girlfriend named Darcy. Darcy and I were companions for 16 years, but she could never leave California. I could not marry her. But when I came back to my town in Sonora, everybody knew it's Tony and Darcy. When they're apart, it's free will. When they're back in the same town, it's those two. It was all because of legalities in California. She had kids. She couldn't leave. And it's unfortunate now. Darcy died at a very young age. I think she was 36 when she passed. And she died of lung cancer, I believe it was. And so we took a trip to Hawaii, put her to rest. So we had a lot of things go on in 2001, which solidified our friendship quite a bit right there.
Right.
We didn't get married till I was waiting still. 2007 we finally got married. So I married my best friend.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah. And then take us through your post career, or maybe career,
So
your next career, I guess,
Right.
and
Yeah,
life
be.
after the Navy. And how was that after 22 years?
22 years, yes sir.
Going from, I guess, to the reverse question that I asked you earlier, from the military life back into civilian life. Was that much of an adjustment, or?
No, it really wasn't for me. And I'll tell you why. I think it has a lot to do with me being the extrovert again, just always being out and doing something in the community. I had 2 jobs in Hawaii, the Navy and MWR. I was a volunteer for Red Cross, so I wasn't always under the Navy's umbrella.
Yeah, gotcha.
I kept myself going out. I didn't have a family. I always wanted a family. I always wanted 4 kids. That didn't happen, and I'm sure there's a reason. So there's a lot of differences between me and many other shipmates out there. So for me, it was a fairly easy transition because I didn't have any responsibilities other than to myself. Where a married man would have responsibilities to his wife, or his wife and his kids, and the schools, and that makes it difficult. I don't know who that is, and they can wait too. Sorry.
Yeah.
So the transition was fairly easy. I banked all my leave, so I had 90 days of vacation, paid vacation. I spent 30 days of it in the month of March of 2000, and took my mom when she was alive I knew it'd be a final voyage. We just had a feeling. She was suffering from ALS.
Oh, jeez.
And she beat breast cancer. She beat cervical cancer. Now she's diagnosed with ALS. So we got my little Saturn coupe, drove up and down California, visited all the family and friends we possibly could. Friends we haven't seen in 20 plus years. Found them, and so she got to have a reconnect with all her friends that she hasn't seen. And then in September of that same year, 2001, she passed. So that was an awesome trip. And then I came out here, and I didn't need to get a job right away, but picked up a job with Banner Health out here, and well, I thought I was getting a job at the hospital next door to my house where I was living at one point. And it ended up being in Greeley, town about 35 miles east of me. The interview lady was really nice, and the building wasn't that bad, so I wanted to work in the hospital field as a maintenance mechanic. And that's what I got. That's what came up. They didn't tell me it was a psych ward. So I'm working at a behavioral health facility of adults. So that was my first job at Banner, and I was there for 5 years. It wasn't long after that I got picked up to go by my director, Troy was his name. For the last name I don't remember quite what it was, but he recommended me to go pull up this job for director at Northern Colorado Rehab. And the application says you have to have a master's degree. I don't have a master's degree. He says, I don't care, go apply. Your word's in already. I said, okay. I applied and got the job. So now I'm a director of 4 departments. I did okay there, but unfortunately the HR person did not care for me from the day I got hired. It made my job very difficult. So I finally gave up after 2 years there. I said, I'm done. I don't need this stress. And my wife now, girlfriend then, agreed, don't need this stress. So I picked up another job, and that was with North Range Behavioral Health, one psych ward to another psych ward, right? This was a youth rehabilitation center. Probably my most rewarding job I've ever had in my life.
Wow.
I'm dealing with kids, keeping in mind, I'm in the Navy. I give respect. I expect respect in return. These kids have been molested. They've been physically molested, mentally, morally, by somebody of trust in their family or a police officer. These kids don't know what respect is. And the first time I got spit in the face by one, it was probably the hardest thing for me to control, because I did not like that. But I knew these were children, and I knew there was an issue. So I just held my breath. I walked away, washed my face, came back, and we talked. Another kid came by on another day, dropped, kneed me in the center of my back when I had my knees on the ground. That one took me to the ER. Now I've been there a couple years. And when I came back from medical, the kid looked at me and I looked at him and I said, "Come here." I said, "Are you gonna hit me?" I go, "No, just come here." He came to me and I go, "I want you to hug me." It's okay.
Wow. Yeah.
And if I can go home every day knowing that I worked with these kids and what they had to go through, what they have been tortured with, and I can go back and tell them it's okay. We will get through this. It changed me.
Now,
That changed me a lot.
Were you a maintenance engineer there as well?
I was a maintenance guy.
But you were kind of.
I ended up becoming a mental health worker for them.
Did you? Did you really?
They asked me to bring my military records in. They said, we want to make you a mental health worker. Can you do both? I go, sure. And I didn't ask for any more pay because I wanted the kids involved.
Yeah.
They broke a wall. They're going to learn how to fix that wall. We had a park. We created a park on the back outside of the fence. So if their kids were really good, there's that reward. I don't believe in disciplinary actions when you could reward them for actions, it's positive reinforcement. And so we had this huge cottonwood tree, I guess it was, and the kids would climb it. And I would cut out these little hands. I'd made a bunch of hands out of a jigsaw. I mean, a bunch of them. I gave them paints, gave them everything they needed to make it their hand. We called it Helping Hands Park. And on that tree, all these hands are on that tree of everybody who ever helped clean up the yard outside the fence, which is the community.
Yeah.
It wasn't our property, but we made it ours. And that was kind of a reward. I would take them on trips as a reward to maybe the roller rink or to a museum or to a train station in Greeley. There's been some sad stories there where one young lady, she came to us at age 13. I want to say 12 or 13, she came to us. And unfortunately, she was raised by her mom, who was on the streets of Denver, and her mom would prostitute her out. And she learned at such an early age on how to use her body, if you would say, and use her words to try to seduce older men. Well, and I was one of the only men that worked there at the time. It's mostly females that work in that building. And, there's not too many female maintenance techs, so that's how I got in there. There's one other guy that comes in and goes, but when you look at the ratio, 2 to 10, it was obvious. Well, this little girl, she went into her bedroom after she did something wrong. And all I did is go like this to my staff. So they had my eyes on her because it would split into 2 wings, boys' wing, girls' wing. I was going down the girls' wing and I gave the signal, watch. I stood out the door, I go, you need to come out. Fuck you. You need to come. No way. I go, last call, I'm coming in. You can't come in here, I'm going to call rape. Walked in there and she started calling rape. Before she got the second one out, the staff was out there. They took her and they took her out. She came back and goes, I'm sorry, Mr. Tony.
Wow.
She and I became the best of friends.
Oh, man.
And I want you to know she graduated with honors from high school. She was finally picked up by her grandma and she graduated with honors. All they need is direction. That was the most rewarding job by far in my life.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So unfortunately, the state had taken the funding away, and we had to close that school down. It was called Littler in Greeley. And then I went to a couple other jobs, and now in 2010 I picked up a job with PVH, Poudre Valley Hospital at the time. We weren't affiliated with UC Health yet, and then about 4 years in, they decided to merge with UC Health, where I was a maintenance guy, and I started that as Tech 1. Now I'm a supervisor of a crew of 20, and all the things I've learned in life I've cherished. And working with the guys that I work with there, I've learned from my past mistakes and learned from what it takes to be teamwork. And I still don't have it down perfectly because we still have our problems. But one thing I do is I do lead by example, and I try to treat everybody as equally as possible. And when somebody has a really bad day, I tell the story about the kids I worked with. So you don't know what a bad day is until you are molested by your mom and dad. One young boy was put up for adoption because of that, and then his adopted parents did the same thing, and his sphincter never worked again. And it's sad. There's good stories. There's one young man who is there, and he lives here in Loveland. I won't give his name out, but the young boy there was adopted by a staff member, and he's doing fantastic. He looks great. Everything about him is doing great. He graduated from high school. He's into college. He's just doing outstanding. Actually, there's two of them I know now. I think of another one. And the same with him. They're both doing really, really. So there are success stories, but it takes patience.
Wow. Well, like I said, I've known you at least a good decade, and you're in the thick of community service. Talk about some of the things you've done post-Navy, community service-wise. And
here in Loveland,
yeah.
In the year 2000, I came to Loveland, and I immediately got involved in my local American Legion. I'm not eligible for VFW, like I had mentioned. I'm not a wartime vet, so got involved with them, and here I am, a rookie, starting all over. You're an E1 in the American Legion, kind of, although there's no rank amongst us. And so a couple years after being in it, I started getting adjusted to how all things work, and the World War II Memorial was coming up in dedication in Washington, D.C. Remember, I'm new, and I don't know a whole lot, but I asked the guys, I said, why don't we send some veteran here to go to the World War II Memorial dedication coming up in D.C.? And everybody in the crowd in the room was, rah, 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 rah. We ain't got the money for that, Tony. No, we can't do that. There's no way that's going to happen. You know, so I heard all these. I didn't hear anybody say something good. So I turned around and said, well, would you support me if I raise the money? Well, yeah. Okay. So I used my own money and got a banner, and it says raising funds to send a World War II veteran and their spouse or partner to Washington, D.C. to represent the veterans of Loveland. Loveland started out as a retirement community, and we got a lot of military out here. So then I used the paper and the media and whatnot I could do, and I got a lot of support. And in 4 months I had $7,000, and I put a stop to it. I said, okay, now we're going to do a drawing. Well, how are you going to do that? Everybody put a letter in. If you want to get, put your letter in, and I'll put it in the drawing. So they would write letters of their time in the military, and they'd send pictures. And we turned the club into a World War II memorabilia. Well, we got to pull in letters, and the first guy that got it happened to be in the hospital and couldn't go, so we had to go to an alternate, which I knew we'd do an alternate. I did the alternate, and his name was Carl Koff. I think you did a piece on him. I did, yeah. So Carl Koff and his wife went to Washington, D.C. to represent all the veterans of Loveland, the city of Loveland, Colorado, at Washington, D.C. And I must have rolled the dice right, because he got to sit next to Colorado Senator Wayne Allard at the dedication. So that was really cool. But while he was out there in D.C., here in Loveland, I arranged with some of that money, was for a police escort by the Laramie County Sheriff's Department and Loveland PD, who they're very instrumental in making this happen. It was a 14-mile motorcade of all World War II veterans that sat in vehicles, and they drive around. We had a map, so the community would go out there with their flags. At the end of the motorcade, they ended up at Loveland High School, where they have a big amphitheater, where I had it set up with all the chairs in the amphitheater, so you could think of a conch shell or whatever, clam shell. All the veterans are sitting here. I had a podium off to the side, a gauntlet of flags where they had to walk under to get to their chair. And as they came by, each one got an American flag to sit down. And out in the grassy knoll, here facing to the conch shell, was a seating for the public. Above the knoll was a World War II reenactment team by Russ Morgan and his crew. So they set up a camp. We had a Stuart-like tank up there. We had Jeeps. We just had an abundance of stuff there reminding you of World War II. Well, when the World War II veterans came in, there was over 300 of them then. We don't have that many now, because that was 24 years ago, or 20 years ago. So when they sat down, we had proclamations, we had speeches and all that, but I had certificates for them. Every one of those World War II veterans had a little certificate of appreciation. What gets me is I had the kids involved, and I made sure they were involved. And as the kids came up, right before this all started, a mother came up to me and says, "Can my son give his grandfather his?" I said, "Absolutely, he'll be number one." So we got the names and everything. So I'll just use a name here. Jim Hoffman. Now, Jim Hoffman's a World War II veteran. Some can't stand. So I gave them directions, instructed them to wave flags when they hear their name. So he'd wave his flag with the 48 star flag behind them. I used that 48 star. He'd wave his flag, and his grandson exchanged. The grandson took the flag as he handed him the certificate, which was like passing the baton. Because now the American flag is in those kids' hands.
Wow.
So every kid that was there got to do that with all the World War II veterans. And that was a very emotional moment for me, because you could just see the pride of those World War II veterans of what they've achieved to make these kids under a free country of the land of the brave. So that was my first one. It was so successful, the city picked up on it. And it wasn't too long after that, I did a couple small stuff, and then in 2004, I became the chairman. I got on board with the Loveland Veterans Memorial, and I chaired that and became one of the board members, and we got our first, in the capital sculpture of the world, we finally got a sculpture that represents the veterans, and it's at our Loveland Veterans Memorial inside Dwayne Webster's Veterans Park. And that took me $75,000. And I didn't do it alone. I came on board later to help.
That's the Army Cross?
That's the Soldier's Cross.
The Soldier's Cross, yeah. Okay.
Yep, it's on a black granite stone from India. So it stands pretty tall, and around it has all the names of those who were killed in action during the various wars from World War I to current. But they had to be a resident of Loveland on their DD-214, a home of record. So somebody could have served and been killed in action, but if their home of record was Longmont, Colorado, which is a town just south of us, can't put the name on it. We went by home of record. Now there's a brick pathway, I call it Pathway to Freedom. You could put anybody's name in there, civilian or whoever, in support. So that started kicking up, and then my name got out there a little bit more. And well, Veterans Day parade here in Loveland was, to say the least, lacking. It was a 4-block parade, and it was like either drunks coming out of a bar, it appeared to be, or just old man who could barely get his walker going. So I changed things up, because as the chairman for the Veterans Memorial, we knew where it was going, and now you're going to make me chairman of this Veterans Parade. I'm changing the route to end at the memorial. For those of you who don't know, the parade used to start at our Fairgrounds Park, which was quite a steep hill for these older people to walk up a hill on. And then it come across, and across 287. 287 is a major highway, and there's one way this way and one way north, one way south. And when you close both those down, that creates a mess. I said, well, why do we have to make it so difficult? Well, we just start at the club, which is the top of the hill that they don't have to climb. walk 1 mile to where the sculpture is, and we can end our parade there at the memorial site. And everybody's like, that sounds great. One thing led to another, and that was in 2004. Here, 20 years later, and it hasn't changed. The route hasn't changed. If anything, I took that 4-block parade and made that change, and I started soliciting parade entries. I went out everywhere I could. I got the Purple Heart clubs. I got the VFW. I got the Loveland Marine Corps. I got the Fort Collins Marines. I got the Army to come out. I got flyovers. I was just busy. But I didn't do it alone. I kind of set it up in a military way. I said, I'm gonna be, and I explained it, I'll be the axle of this wheel. This wheel cannot roll without its spokes. And each member in this team is a spoke of that wheel. All I am is the focal point in the middle to keep it going. If a spoke will break, I will support it. If 5 of these spokes break, it's going to be too hard. So we have to divvy up some And that was kind of my theory of how to run it. So everybody had a part. I want you to go get a hold of the Army. I want you to get a hold of the Navy. You get the Air Force. You get the Marine Corps. See if they can bring some military equipment out. Can you get chairs or whatever it might be? So everybody had a part, and everybody owned that part. And a few years later, Cesar Gutierrez, a dear friend of mine now since he's past mayor, he made it known that if it wasn't for my actions, our parade would probably dwindle to nothing, because I took a 4-block parade to now a nationally recognized
Yeah, I was going to say it's the top 40.
Top
parade.
48 in the nation. Yeah. We are affiliated with the VA in Washington D.C. We get our annual certificate. We just submit all the paperwork to them, what we got going on. We hold the largest Veterans Day event. We start at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
We don't end till the party's over. Now some of you guys are 4 a.m. Are you serious?
Yeah.
I'm not exaggerating.
Yeah.
Maybe you've not heard it, but go on YouTube and pull up Loveland Bell Ringers, and at 4 a.m, our Loveland Bell Ringers are out there ringing bells from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock to signify the signing of armistice on World War I. So that comes about. I like to tell the story that we used the bells as a reminder, because at the end of World War I, the only communication you had was church bells and lights. You didn't have telephones like you would think.
Right.
So if the lights are on, the bells are ringing, you know it's peace. And when France rang their bells, the bells ran across the country, come across the pond to us about the same time. The true story, though, behind the Loveland Bell Ringers actually started in 1926 by our World War I doughboys. They weren't called the Bell Ringers, it was called Reveille. Reveille was these guys just got done with World War I and they didn't want to stop meeting for breakfast. So they'd literally go around town shooting guns. At that time, there was a lot of open land here, people. It's farmland. They'd shoot guns, drag things. They'd pull pranks on each other. They'd steal pigs from another farmer's yard. Heck, they even jailed the sheriff one time. It's all in the newspapers. But it was called Reveille until about 1961, when a couple of guys, Harry Bath and someone else, they got out these bells, and shooting the guns in the 60s wasn't really a wise thing to do anymore. So they kind of changed it and tampered it down to where it's just bell ringers. And it's the same thing, Reveille or bell ringers, but get our Veterans Day up. And it's quite pleasing to drive around at 4 or 5 in the morning, and you actually see porch lights flickering, saying thank you, to remind them. Some will be out in robes with coffee. And then you'll get those that just moved here from California or Texas. What the hell's all that chatter? I'm calling the cops. Come here a moment. Yeah. I had the mayor, Jackie Marsh, in the truck one time. And somebody's crying, giving me crap. He says, come on up here. What's going on? And I told him what it was all about. He goes, oh, I'm so sorry. I did not know. I go, it's understandable, but now you know. And here's our pass from the city, and I also have the city mayor sitting here. Oh, I'm sorry. And then they'll walk away.
Wow.
I've had vehicles cut me off to stop me. You have to explain it to them, but that's okay.
Yeah.
We educate them, right?
Right. Yeah.
Don't get mad. Educate.
Yeah.
So after that, that really got me in the limelight. Doing that for 10 years, from 2004 to 2014, I ran Veterans Day here in Loveland. But in between Veterans Day, I do a lot of other things from, oh my gosh, Chris Hahn, great story. A Marine comes back, amputee below the leg, and his house was not fitted for him. So I arranged, got people together. We did a $35,000 makeover on his house so he can have access. And that was like our own little mini home improvement. But I got so many people involved. And we had a barbecue out there in the front yard. And him and his wife and his brand new baby, they were just so pleased and happy that a community would come together like that. So that's one of the stories that I have out there. And just constantly doing something. I run for the past 15 years or so, I've been running Dwayne Webster Veterans Park Day of Remembrance of Pearl Harbor. I've been running that since Bill Schlingman had passed the baton to me. Bill Schlingman and Bill Dewey were the key instrumental people who got our park, which was once named South Lake Park, renamed to Harold Dwayne Webster Veterans Park. So we have a Veterans Park. And in that park, there's a picture of Dwayne. And Dwayne Webster was the first KIA of World War II. And he was aboard the Arizona on that fateful day. It was really ironic because he joined the Navy 1 year to the day on December 7th, 1940, enlisted in the Navy. So it's very unfortunate. But his sister was alive. I got to meet her. She's been to several of my events. During the weekdays, I've changed the protocol. They used to do it at 11 in the afternoon on weekdays, and I didn't like that because people are working. So I've changed that to evening, and we do a candlelight vigil on the evenings. And on the weekdays, or the weekends I should say, I'll do it during the day so I can get the kids involved and whatnot. Now this year it is on a Saturday, so we'll see what happens on that one. But I get involved with quite a bit. I had been awarded by Larimer County Youth Advocate of the Year here. 1 year I was awarded by the city of Loveland, people who make change, who make a difference. I'm sorry, people who make differences. I've been in that. I've had a few magazine articles. I donated a POW MI table to our VA office. We have a brand new VA HBOT over here. They have a big room. They had nothing in there, and I was really disturbed not to see a POW MI table or anything else, but other than just a single American flag. So I got all the materials, got everything together, and donated a POW MI table to them, and they're very grateful for that.
And you're presently on the, talking about your present.
The present, yes. Currently, we have all these veteran memorials in Loveland from 1926 to the current 2005 dedication of the Veterans Memorial. 20 years has gone by, and well, we're losing our ground space of doing events. So we got together, and the city asked me to come on board with these guys. I have this great idea to do a Vietnam Veterans Memorial, and well, we kind of blew it up, and we made it bigger. And now we're going to have an actual event center. It's called the Veterans Honor Monument. And it's basically a plaza where there's seating, there's facilities, there's plenty of parking, there'll be a stage, but surrounding this whole area, encompassing it, will be markers of all war eras. And I'm a very, very much pro remembering Cold War. As a Cold War veteran, I'm very much remembering Afghanistan and Panama, Grenada, all these different war eras that are often not mentioned, because you'll hear World War I, you'll hear World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and you might hear war on terrorism, but you don't hear each single one of them. So those who served during that time may feel left out. So I was very much of an advocate in making sure that we recognize everybody, and it's been approved.
Well, I mean, that adds to the thought. That's another project you had going on. You collected all the flags for these various small, unforgotten conflicts.
I did. Some of these, a lot of flags I can get online, but those flags like Panama, they don't make a flag for that. They make a flag for war on terrorism and Desert Storm. You can find them online, but you look for Afghanistan, Panama, Grenada, they're not there, so I had them custom made. And Panama, you'll see it's on a green backing, yellow island of Panama with the canal, and in this one area you'll see the Huey in there. So I have a flag that represents everybody,
Wow.
everyone,
Yeah.
and that's my way of reminding people. In one particular story, I placed the flags up on a Memorial Day at an event in Fort Collins, and doing so, a lady came up and saw the Panama flag. She's opening them up and she goes, "I don't believe somebody has this." And I spoke to her. I go, "I had that made." And I go, "What's the significance of that to you now?" The lady is married and has a son. She goes, "My high school boyfriend died." And knowing that gave her peace, knowing that he wasn't forgotten. Again, that's who I am.
Yeah, yeah.
Try to reach out so people know that they're not forgotten.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's rewarding. Again, it's reward. That's the only reward I need.
Yeah.
So know that they're appreciative that their loved ones aren't forgotten.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're up to the present and we're getting towards the end of the interview. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you wanted to talk about? Any other stories that have kind of floated to the top as we've been sitting here? I know we only probably got the tip of the iceberg of your story, but anything you want to add to that story that we didn't, to hopefully round out your story as best we can, or do you think we pretty much covered everything you wanted to cover?
Well, I'm 64. You can ask for a 64-year-long storyline, but I think we've hit the highlights of my military career, and my upbringing was not always so rich and famous. It was a bit poor, and the Navy gave me direction, which is what I needed. It gave me education, which was tough for this noggin. But God has given me grace to do what I've learned and to give back to my community. I strongly believe in that. Because if you don't, your community won't be there for you when you need them most. Everything I have done in life, whether it was right or wrong, made me who I am. People I met, whether you liked me, stood by me, or you disliked me, you too helped me make me who I am today. And with that, I can say thank you, and I'm very blessed.
Wow, it's a good thing to end off on. I want to thank you, Tony, for sitting down to tell your story, but more importantly, I want to thank you for your service to our country and to our communities.
Thank you for your support. Here I am as a baby, getting ready to come to USA.
That's a fascinating story. I didn't know that about you.
My official U.S. Navy basic training graduation photograph given to my mom.
Oops.
There I am coming home, first time home from basic training in my 1978 salt and pepper uniform. They got rid of the Cracker Jacks when I joined. Here I'm sitting on the Amtrak train headed for my first duty station from Sacramento, California to Scotland.
Great trip.
During this trip on the Amtrak train, I ended up stopping in Washington, D.C. and got to see the Capitol, most other things. Aboard the USS Holland and AS-32 in Holy Lock, as part of the detachment with the guys, we're just having fun doing some photo ops. Now aboard the USS Holland AS-32, stationed in Holylock, Scotland, and it's bitter cold there. But while we're there in Holylock, we do have time to have a little fun, so yeah, the boys broke out their knives. I didn't just play on board ship, work hard, play hard, well, I also took a trip, and at that cornerstone there is where Holland, Germany, and Belgium all meet. So my next command took me to the USS Holland, where I became an official recorder when Caspar Weinberg came on board ship with our skipper. While aboard the USS Roanoke, we did a Westpac trip. Here I'm seen in Thailand, one of the most beautiful cultures I've ever visited. Very, very interesting. After USS Roanoke, I was then stationed at NAS Alameda's Base Police. Here you can see me coming out for practice drills, and I'm having a shotgun in my hand. My certification completion for Special Weapons and The next duty then took me to USS Miller FF-1091 out of Newport, Rhode Island. Here we made a stop into Boston,
Where the USS Constitution is. Yeah.
Yep. Official Navy photo, a kind of a Mother's Day gift to my mom. This was at NRD Denver. After the Miller, I went to next duty station at NRD Denver. Here I'm being seen as a green recruiter, getting my paperwork taken care of. Being a recruiter in the Navy Blues has its benefits and its perks. Here I'm seen with the Denver Bronco cheerleaders out on the field right when we got done doing colors. Another photograph, here I'm in my whites while I was stationed at Pearl Harbor. Mother's Day gift, keeping her in touch. Her baby boy's doing just fine. While stationed in Hawaii, not only was I a swim instructor, but I was a lifeguard for MWR in Hawaii. As a lifeguard, I also excelled in getting my WSI, or Water Safety Instructor, and Water Safety Instructor Training. Here I'm with my class, teaching them how to be lifeguards, graduating class in Pearl Harbor. My last and final enlistment in the U.S. Navy before I retire was aboard the USS Arizona in Pearl Harbor. At my enlistment, they didn't have the right size flag, so they gave me the next size up, and I was privileged to hoist my own colors above the USS Arizona. Here's the flag that I hoisted. It is now in my display case with certificate of authenticity of where that flag has flown.
And you've also got a piece of the Arizona, correct?
I do. After I retired from the Navy, I got very active with the American Legion. Here I'm sitting at National Headquarters in the Grand Poobah's chair, the National Commander's chair. And I was there for American Legion College. This picture doesn't show the full scope of this memorial, but this is the Loveland Veterans Memorial that I'm standing next to here in Loveland, Colorado. When I'm not doing Legion stuff, military stuff, and I want to go out and enjoy and do something different, I get in the 1967 Mustang that I'm leaning against, and we go out for a pint or two. As part of the American Legion, I like to have fun, so I wore a top hat, put a Legion logo on it, and those are my dress tux uniform for American Legion functions throughout the state. And there I am in the U.S. Navy uniform with a frame my wife gave me. So we put that together for me. It was one of my birthday gifts.
This is post-years, post-career, or were you in the Navy? Is this an actual Navy picture?
No, this is... The picture was an actual Navy picture, but other than that, we just put the picture in the frame. Here I am on Veterans Day Parade, and just routing up the crowd with my little bullhorn, getting the kids excited, and reminding them to say, "Go Navy," when the Army comes by. This other newspaper clipping is of the Veterans Memorial that I take care of, that I'm a curator of, and take care of the bricks. You can see me handing in the bricks. In this case, I'm reminding everyone about our World War I veterans, and so they are not forgotten. These bricks were all purchased and donated. 140 bricks plus. More recently, this is obviously an older picture of me now. I'm starting to age up, and I can still wear my uniform, though. I can retire in my uniform. But thanks to Veterans Honoring Veterans, they presented me with this sculpture of a sailor, and I was picked up on it for Loveland South Lifestyle magazine cover, which was really awesome on both parts. This is my little self-created tour of my Navy times from 1978 to the year 2000, all the places I've been, the duty stations I've been assigned to. Starting with the USS Holland at the top, all the ship commands are on top, USS Roanoke, and USS Miller. Other shore duty commands are listed at the bottom of this screen. Proof that if you join the Navy, you'll see the world.